welcome to part number 9 of the Link to the Past playthrough. And we're at a boss again, and this is jellyfish covered with Huff and Puff clouds. Huff and Puff from the Paper Mario game, the first one, if you're familiar with it. I don't know what this boss is, but it's a jellyfish with one eye. I don't know, it's weird. What you want to do is equip the hook shot, use it against the cloud things, pull them towards you, and then kill them. After you defeat all of them, the jellyfish will get really mad and start to bounce around the room. So you want to dodge it and then hit it with your sword. Simple as that. It's pretty cool. One thing I like about the Legend of Zelda games is that for most bosses, you need to use the item you got in the dungeon. I think it's really cool. You understand a little bit about how to defeat the boss before going in, so you're not completely clueless. And it's not like Legend of Zelda bosses are cryptic in any way. They're pretty standard. They're not puzzling bosses, at least for the most part. I can't think of any off the top of my head. But he'll go down in quite a few hits, like 5 or so, somewhere around 5, I don't know. And you will collect the second crystal, which has another maiden in it. Each maiden gives you a little speech that sometimes it gives you clues or tells you a little backstory to what's going on in the Dark World or who's doing what. Stuff like that. Like this one is going to talk about the Triforce. You can read that if you want, but basically, the Triforce, it grants the wishes of anyone who touches it. And if someone evil touches it, like Ganondorf, it'll make the world evil, but if someone good touches it, like Zelda, the world will be great. The Triforce comes back in pretty much every Legend of Zelda game from now on. In fact, no, it was in the first one too, so pretty much every Legend of Zelda game. I think it's absent in Minish Cap. It's not like it's absent from the game, but it's not a plot point. I don't see it in Minish Cap, and there's a few other games, but... Or is it in Minish Cap? I have not played Minish Cap in the longest time. I think I'll go play it right after this commentary. Well, let's finish it first. We're gonna do some item collection before we go on to the third dungeon. And there's pretty much item collection in every video now. What can I say? There's a lot of items to collect in the game. And I want to show all of them to you. Because they're all unique, they all serve a purpose. And, in fact, I think they're all interesting. So, if I think they're interesting, I hope you find them interesting. So to get our next item, you want to come over here and talk to this guy. And he'll give you the shovel. And the shovel is the best item in the entire game, without a doubt. I mean, the shovel, it allows you to dig holes. Yes! Just the ability I was looking for. What you want to do is go into the light world. Then you'll see this elf boy playing on his ocarina, but then he'll disappear. Go up here, dig in the flowers, and you'll find... Oh no, it's the flute. It's not the ocarina yet. It's the flute. The flute does absolutely nothing right now. You want to play the flute in front of him, just because it's his final request. And then I think he'll tell you what to do with the flute. But as of right now, the flute is completely useless. It doesn't do anything. It just makes sounds. In the original Legend of Zelda, the flute, it killed certain enemies. I think so. I think it killed certain enemies. And it dried up one of the lakes to get to dungeon number 7, I believe. So it had its purpose. And if you played the original one, you may be thinking, it does the same thing, but it doesn't. You have to do something before its power is activated. And once it's activated, it's actually one of the most useful items in the game. In fact, I consider it mandatory. It's not mandatory, but it saves you so much time. And for a playthrough like this, I didn't want to spend, 35 parts. I think I shortened it down to 17. Something like that, so I think that's a pretty good amount of parts. 17. Not too much, not too little. And for a game like this, which is huge and expansive, 17 parts is good, and I try to cover pretty much everything. So, yeah. That dark rock right there that I couldn't lift, you need the next glove upgrade to pick those up. I think I mentioned it earlier, but with the power glove, you can lift up the light rocks, and with the next glove upgrade, you can lift up the dark ones. Keep that in mind. In the dark worlds, the light rocks and the dark rocks, they don't look that much different. In fact, they look pretty much the same, but regardless, just test every rock you see if you can pick it up. If you can't, that means you need the next glove upgrade, which we'll be getting that soon. It won't be, I think in part number, let's see, 11? I think in part number 11. And you see right now, our inventory screen, it's almost filled up. There's only a few more items left to get, and a lot of them are in the overworld. They're not in the dungeons. We're gonna start getting items in the dungeons that are not actually mandatory. They're actually optional, but they're some of the most useful items in the game. I recommend that you get them all. They're all in your path, you know, the big giant chest. You should get them. They're definitely useful, if I do say so myself. But I'll be getting all the items. I think I said that earlier. But to get to dungeon number 3, we have to head to the Lost Woods, where we found the Master Sword. Dungeon number 3, it's actually pretty interesting. You can switch between the dungeon and the overworld, and it's sort of... I don't know how to explain it, but you'll see it in a little bit. Go over to this statue, play the flute, and an extended version of the tune will play. And after that, something incredible happens. What happens? The statue explodes and oh my god, it's a bird. We saved a bird, yippee. Oh, that's great. I'm glad we can save the animals in this game. And is that all we did? No, that's not all we did. By blowing up that statue, we can call upon the bird and transport to 8 different locations on the map. It is very helpful. It saves you a lot of time. The 8 locations, they're placed in pretty useful spots, except for location number 5 and number 8. For some reason, those ones they're just useless places that you would never go to. I'm not sure why they decided to put transport spots there, but they did. And if you go in this house, you see a nice little dwarf that could upgrade your sword, but he needs his partner. But we can't get his partner yet, but keep that in mind. Use the mallet to push down that stake and jump in this hole. Go up here and select the magic powder. However, I warn you about doing this. It's not recommended because this bat will curse you. Yes, he's going to curse you. Oh, whoa, that was uncalled for. He just cursed you. And now, it's rather misfortunate, as he just said. And it says, now your magic power will drop by 1/2. Darn it! Man! I'm so... What a horrible night to have a curse! Does anybody understand that quote? Like, there's gotta be somebody. That's a famous quote. But what that curse actually did, curse in quotation marks, I just did air quotes, but I realized that you guys can't see me doing the air quotes, so. What that curse actually does is all magic attacks, like the ice rod and the medallions, they now take half the amount of magic as they did before. It's very useful, especially for some of the bosses coming up later in the game, which require you to use magic, so definitely get that. It's a long side quest to get that ability. You have to get the mushroom in the forest, and then you have to go give it to the potion lady up by transport spot number 2, and then finally you have to go there and use the magic powder. It's a long side quest. And I think I just missed a heart piece right there. I believe there was a wall I could have bombed up top, which, I think I had a heart piece in there. I don't know why I decided not to get it. I'm not sure what I was thinking. I don't know. But keep in mind that there's a heart piece there. Or at least I think there's a heart piece there. Anyways, go down here, put a bomb up there, and there'll be a heart piece up there. For the 4 treasure chests in the room I was just in, they all have 20 rupees. I don't think you can get all 4 of them your first time because of the block maze. You can only push the blocks once. So I don't think you can get all of them your first time. But if you exit the building and then come back in, the blocks will reset so you can get the other chests that you missed. It's just 80 rupees, so you don't really need it. At this point I have 518 rupees, so I'm good to go for the rest of the game. But it's always nice to have some. And there's another dark rock that I can't get yet. It's annoying. They're always placed in the most inconvenient locations. I swear, the game developers knew to put them there. Just spots that would anger you. Whenever you needed to go there, that's where they put a dark rock. It's annoying. And here I thought there was a secret passage, but there's only a secret passage in the dark world, and I haven't realized it yet. You have to remember, this is my first playthrough in, I don't know, maybe 2 years. So there's a few things I'm gonna forget. Normally I do a test playthrough for when I do these playthroughs. I do a test run, but for this game I didn't really feel like I needed it. And I really didn't. I think I did a pretty good job. There's a few things I missed, there's a few things I could have corrected, but overall, I feel like this is a good playthrough. I showed off all the items, I got a bunch of heart pieces, I did it in a reasonable amount of time. I think it's a good playthrough, and I hope you think so too. But in the Dark Lost Woods, you can enter the dungeon from different places. And you can go outside the dungeon, explore the Lost Woods, and go in through a different location. It's a pretty unique dungeon. It is required that you go in and out and such to access different parts of the dungeon. But your main goal for this first area is to get the item, the dungeon item, because you need it to access part number 2 of this dungeon, which is right by where you found the Master Sword. You have to use that item to get inside. So your first goal is to collect it. And this dungeon, it's close to being my least favorite dungeon. It's pretty close to the Dark Palace. And the only thing that makes this one better than the Dark Palace is the fact that it's unique and you can travel to different parts of the dungeon by going through different parts of the Lost Woods. I don't know, I think it's cool. But if you don't know what you're doing, this dungeon could potentially take quite a long time. And here I make it to the big chest. Gonna open it, but I realize that I don't have the big key yet, so we gotta go get that. I always do that. Every time I go straight for that chest, because I know I need the item. But I keep forgetting that I need the, what do you call it? The big key. And I don't know why. I never can remember that. I'm not sure why. And this place is sort of like a maze. It's maze-like. You'll definitely be confused your first time going through this dungeon. I know I was. As a kid, this one took me a long time. It took me second longest to figure out. Dungeon number 5 took me forever to figure out as a kid. And I'll explain why when we get there. Now in this palace, a hand will fall from the ceiling every so often and try to grab you. If it grabs you, it will take you to the entrance of the dungeon. And of course, while I'm recording it, it happens 3 times. Yes, 3 times. And it just makes me so angry, this hand. And they brought it back in later games. Even in the 3D games, they bring this hand back. It's so annoying. And I cut out the parts where it grabs me. But just keep in mind, always be on the move. Watch out for that shadow that comes from the ceiling. You do not want to get grabbed by it. It's not really an issue with this part of the dungeon, but when we get to part number 2 of the dungeon, it's very long and very linear, and if it grabs you, it brings you to the very beginning. Very annoying. Very annoying. And I always get grabbed by these hands. In every game, no matter how hard I try, I get grabbed by them at least once. It's usually just once, and then I'm really careful. But in this playthrough, it had to happen 3 times. It just had to. I'm not sure why I selected the mirror right there. What was I thinking? I don't know. Sometimes I do things, and I really don't... I don't know what I was thinking. I'm just like, huh? I watched the footage, and I'm like, what was my thought process there? I don't know. There's the fire rod. It's the opposite of the ice rod. Instead of fire, it shoots out, or instead of ice, it shoots out fire. And unlike the ice rod, the fire rod shoots out at a long distance. The ice rod is pretty short range, but the fire rod is not. It's kind of like shooting the beam laser out of your sword, except in fire form. I'm looking for the description of the fire rod right now. Here it is. This rod spits out a ball of fire that will sear most enemies to a crisp. Some enemies are especially vulnerable to fire, so use the fire rod wisely. The fire rod can also be used like the lantern to light torches, but from a distance. So it's very useful. I'll talk more about that in part number 10. Until then, this is UAA signing out. I'll see you guys later.